Okay, YouTubers, someone once asked if I still did videos, and then I did a couple. Basically, I went silent because so much was going on, I didn't know what to say. Too much was happening at once and in quick succession, and other people were saying things about it that were, they were doing it better than I could anyway. So I just let everything go, and I also got very ill with some lymphedema that I mentioned in a video that went really haywire and then went to leaky leg syndrome, where the lymph burst through to the surface, and it was extremely painful and was cutting its way through. I was yelling in pain for 2 solid hours. And after that again, it finally established itself. And then I went through an enormous amount of pain when I finally learned to manage this stuff. Also, the skin got leathery and thicker, so it was more resistant to the stinging quality. The experts on the subject, what they want to deal with is the earlier stage of this sort of thing. It's at this point, the pressure in the legs is greatly reduced, and there's a slow getting better, but it's slow. It really aged me remarkably, but for a while there. As you can see, the difference in 1 year, between the last video where I looked kind of cute still, and the first in the bunch where I was attacking the slanders on Jack Webb. And contrary to what someone said, I'm not a fangirl. The more I found out about him, the more I am convinced that he and I, if we had ever been acquainted, which we weren't, of course, would have quickly decided we couldn't stand each other. But that's not going to get in the way of my defending him against an unjust accusation or two that have internal problems to the story that don't make sense. That alone in itself is enough to screw it up. Nobody, however, seemed to be noticing that. Maybe one person did, who bothered to post about it. I was the one that took the Mamie Van Doren's story to pieces, and she has 2 versions out there, and I think all the versions got scrubbed. She's probably going to work one up for her Secrets of the Goddess book if it ever gets published. And in an interview with Salon, which had been scrubbed also, that was where she claimed this happened on one of his kids' beds, but in those days, the oldest kid was 4.5 years old, so that's absurd. Got an immediate chuckle out of someone else I told that to. Or chuckle snort, something like that. Anyway, so offhand, I would say that there are some pretty good people out there to listen to. I look for people who are like, they combine a lot of stuff. Now, Canadian Prepper is, on YouTube, is one of these characters that's always, as he himself says, your daily dose of doom and gloom. And it's like, the world's coming to an end by my stuff. He's one of those people, but it's pretty good stuff, and he gives you a rundown of what's going on around the world, including lifetime tracking of air and sea lanes on some occasions. There are programs that will show you that stuff. And then Colonel retired Douglas McGregor is a good one-stop shopping for all sorts of information that you would have to dig around all the corners of the internet in order to put together. Be Good 4000 is a really good resource on the subject of narcissism and recovering from narcissistic abuse. The first education I got on that was Sam Vaknin, who's a recovering narcissist himself, who decided he didn't want to be this way anymore. Another good source is, he's changed his channel's name several times. I guess he got kicked off or something. There's Refuge from Narcissism, there's Societal Narcissism, and sometimes he's on track and sometimes he's not. But he's had personal experience in his earlier videos describe this, and I think it broke him loose from some of the psychological control his parents described what they were really like. Some was downright hilarious in a weird way. Be Good 4000, I think, is really good. He's disguising himself behind a cartoon character type of presentation. So I guess he's worried about some kind of pushback if somebody figured out who exactly he was or recognized him. Narcissism is a personality disorder. I understand that the next or latest version, if it's out yet, of the DSM number, whatever it is, Diagnostic Criteria Manual for Psychological Stuff, has or plans to eliminate narcissism and I guess put it in some other category or something. The thing about narcissists, malignant narcissists, and psychopaths is they, quote, code on the same axis, unquote. In other words, the difference between them is more of degree than of kind. And extremely cunning. In fact, my own personal theory, which may not be correct, is anytime you're looking at an IQ of 180 or higher, you're probably looking at a psychopath. That's not the same as a sociopath. They're close, but they're not identical. The psychopath is much more self-control in some ways, but it's not because he cares about anybody. It's because he doesn't want to get caught. He wants to maximize the damage he can do, which doesn't include signaling ahead of time what he's doing. Or she. I've been through considerable hell, gradually learning by experience from some things. My parents were both in the category of psychotic, toxic, whatever. My father was better than my biological so-called mother. I call her that because I wasn't adopted, but so-called mother because she's a lousy mother, but really good at disguising the situation. And she was, I think, full-on psychopath and evil. And I don't really want to talk about this anymore because I don't like to think about it. There were other evil elements in the family. My father's mother was the closest thing to sane and decent there was back then. Anyway, I had, when I was very young, I learned to read at about 2 years old, and various times I guess I got into the Bible and understood some things. I was nearly dying in a hospital situation and popped out. I was like, I couldn't understand. Okay, it was darkness all around me except for this light, like a robe and a beard. You don't wear a beard in an operating room. I figured it was Jesus and put a stop to my dim eyes. Well, I couldn't understand why the doctors seemed to be clustered around my legs. In those days, I knew nothing about astral projection or anything, or death processes. Apparently, I was coming out the top of my head, which is what often happens when you're dying. It's also a fast-track and very dangerous method of astral projection. See, there is some reality to these things that the New Age plays with, but then they use them to further make credible their theological and other bullshit. And then some people turn around and make the mistake of thinking it's all totally unreal. And so identified with my astral body, etheric body, the immortal part of my soul, whatever you want to call it, my arm, my legs were parallel to where my arms were in my physical body, but I didn't realize that. The only light was the light from the operating room light and the doctors around there. Years later, when I started reading about this stuff, I understood what had happened. I was not pre-primed in anything to understand this stuff. I hadn't heard of it. I understood later when I read about it. A lot of things happened to me. Some things, I was really stupid. I had prior warning and prior knowledge, and I fell for it anyway. Other things, I learned the hard way. Anyway, the preferred career locations of a psychopath and malignant narcissist is positions that give you power over others. Medicine, particularly surgery, military, upper ranks, corporate, upper ranks, the sort of people who do anything to anyone to get ahead, and they don't care what they do, or may even enjoy causing pain and suffering. Police, Probably, corrections officers, stuff like that. And they put you in a leadership roles. It is often assumed that they have no empathy, whatever exactly that means. I suspect they do. But you see, people who talk about empathy assumes that empathy includes caring. That you sense the other person's feelings and you care about them. But supposing these are two separate things, supposing you could sense the other people's feelings, learning by trial and error about micro gestures, body language, etc., or even just picking up somehow semi-consciously on pheromones, whatever, and you don't really care, it is a information gathering technique for you that you then use that information against them. I suspect this goes on with some of these people. Anyway, so I'm getting back on track with my videos. And stuff like that.